We're back, Eric. It's Monday after a fantastic weekend. Last week, we were being optimistic and thought, West Virginia can maybe upset one of these four teams if they play all right and the stars line up and the moon and Jupiter, and it happened. And I was beside myself. Eric, how did you handle the performance? West Virginia, did you like do a double take? Did you like pinch yourself?
We got so much to talk about. That was a great game. There was so much to see. There's so many good takeaways from that game.
Yeah, for professional, the Steelers look good. The West Virginia Mountaineers look good. I mean, it just after last week, both of those teams look like hot garbage. West Virginia looked a little better. We were kind of thinking things are looking on the up and up, and if they just play 80% of that, if we get 80% of that performance from Scotty Fox, we said this on the show, 80%. Jiminy Christmas, he did get 222 yards compared to 300. I don't know if that's 80%, pretty darn close.
Mm-hmm.
Mountaineers had help from the defense and Lady Luck.
And the run game. That, to me, that was the big thing.
We'll talk about it. We'll go through each player's position scores. And surprising, you said the run game looked as good as it did, because when you look at the scores, their pass performance, the offensive linemen had better numbers. The run defense, or the run, the numbers that they measure the offensive line for rushing, they weren't quite as favorable. But the Hubbard got around, and I'll tell you what, they ate up some yards. Anyways, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Yeah, and Jersey, you are so right. These shows are so much easier when they win. It's it's like, let's pump ourselves up. There's no pumping ourselves up. Eric, this West Virginia, it's hard for you to even talk. I'm so excited. Like, West Virginia looks so good. They have a chance of beating anybody they play these last four games.
So we were talking last week, because I thought the TCU performance I thought there was a lot of positives in that game. And quite honestly, I felt as though if we got some better contribution from the run on the offense, that's what was missing. So is it time to dive into these things now? Are we ready?
Yeah, let's dive in, because there's a lot to talk about. We'll talk tonight about West Virginia's performance. We'll talk about how happy, like, Rich Rod wears his heart on his sleeve. You know exactly what he's feeling, the frustration. You don't need a mood ring to put on his finger to figure out what's up. Also, we'll talk about the games moving forward. How the percentage, like you see, like on ESPN, will say, West Virginia has an 18% chance. Last week we did that, and we went through all the percentages. We'll go through those again. I'll just refresh your memory and see how those changed. But nothing's better than a good performance last week. But Rich Rod only gives these guys 24 hours to kind of enjoy, to savor it, right? But anyways, let's dive in, Eric. Go ahead.
So there's a lot to talk about. I heard and that's the thing. Anytime as your fan base, if you have a win, everybody's happy, everybody's excited. They're talking about all sorts of things, and that's a good thing. Even last week, I started hearing a lot more positivity around the program. This week, it was funny because I heard people talking out of both sides of their mouth. I heard, well, if it weren't for the 4 turnovers, timeout. Turnovers are a huge part of the game, and don't think, that is a huge statistic that teams strive for. Teams, if you're on offense, they tell you to secure that ball. If you're on defense, by golly, you're looking to strip it, you're looking to recover. So the fact that we created 4 turnovers, that was huge. And here's something interesting. Do you know how many points we scored off those turnovers?
I don't know. I should know this. 21?
10. So that's okay. What did we win by?
Oh, we won. What was the final
Won
score?
by
I don't remember.
We won by 10.
10. See, I can't do
So
math, Eric. You asked me to math it.
see, I put you on too much pressure. I told you to math. Um, so the 4 turnovers, absolutely huge contribution in the game, and it's not luck. That is something that this coaching staff has definitely been preaching. Now, something that's not as much of a controlled factor is the officiating,
Oh yeah.
and the officiating wasn't great. I wouldn't have told you that it cost us the game, but there were big plays that I do think slightly favored Houston. So this was not a game where Houston laid down and just forgot about us. Houston, absolutely. I don't think they were pretenders at number 22. The reason that we beat them by 10 was because of the turnover margin and the scoring off the turnovers. But Houston wouldn't go away. Every time it looked like we might start to pull away, Houston answered. So that's a mark of a good team. And as further evidence that Houston was, how should I say this? They were not sleeping and they were fighting hard. Um, they were playing for their former strength coach, Darren Mustin. Just want to send our condolences to the Houston program and their fan base. That team had dedicated the game to his memory, and he had meant a lot to them. So if anybody thinks they were sleeping on this game,
No.
it wouldn't have mattered who they played. They were going to play, determined, and they definitely did. Much respect to them, and that's you could see it the whole way through. They never gave up.
Yeah, and you know what? They're a well coached team. I was always a fan of Willie Fritz. I think when I first heard him when he was at Tulane, right? And
Hmm.
he was killing it there. And when I first started working on this show with Joey, I'm like, man, Tulane is it's been 2 years that they've had 10-year or 10-win years, and he has established a good culture there, good football culture. It's just too bad the fan base doesn't share my enthusiasm for their head coach, and for the fact that team was 22, just came off a big upset of Arizona State. Arizona State is good, okay. Mountaineers have to travel out there in a couple weeks to see if they pass the smell test before the Texas Tech game. See exactly if there's hope, if they can maybe make it a competition for make Texas Tech bleed a little bit before they have to go to the Big 12 championship, because you and me both were thinking it's going to be BYU and Texas Tech in the Big 12 championship. But back to the Mountaineers. Let's talk about Fiona Biscuit's comment here. Rich Rod has this team that I think if Neil Brown had it would have checked out. Okay, hasn't
Completely agree.
These kids are mercenaries, and mercenaries are very hard to motivate, very hard to lead. Okay, you go back to your history, and Napoleon had a lot of mercenaries. Anyways, but he's getting these kids the ball out. Mm-hmm. Even when things aren't going their way. In that game, there were some hiccups, but they kept just hitting and pushing. That line got pushed, and the O-lineman, this is what sums it up. Fiona, you hit the nail on the head. When he grabbed that player and kind of threw him forward, I knew that was a penalty immediately, okay? But I loved it. And I'll take that penalty every stinking time, because if he just pushed him instead of picking him up, that's a first down, okay? That's the type of effort you need. And on defense, it looked like piranhas hitting bait, man. There's like the black jerseys from a week ago that we saw were swarming. They were there, and they were hitting them on the line of scrimmage. It wasn't the fact that one guy missed and the other guys were making up for it. They were really actively just, making that contact at the line of scrimmage and wrapping up. It looked a lot better. And when you look at the PFF scores, one of the cornerbacks had the highest score at 90. So
Scruggs,
Scruggs, yeah. So I was surprised at that. I thought it was going to be Dory Hubbard, but no. Let's go to the chat real quick, and then we'll hit back up with what we're
Hey,
talking about.
before you mention that,
Yeah.
I wanted to compliment Fiona. Absolutely, that is the kind of heart and effort you want to see. And if they want to call a flag on that, that's fine. It's a dumb rule because like you said, if he's pushing, that's a legal play. But the fact that he's pulling, that's what does it matter? Stupid rule. They need to examine that.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that need to re-examine, especially in college, in NFL, and in high school. The fact that high school, if a kid catches the ball off a kick return in the end zone, it's automatically, they get it. They can't run it out of the end zone. There's so many inconsistencies that just doesn't pass the sniff test. I understand it's for safety sometimes, but I don't think kid being able to run out of the end zone doesn't seem like a big deal. But anyways, so we had all the sides of the ball look like they were kind of just in sync. The communication seemed to be there. Rich Rod, I didn't see him crack a lot of smiles on the sideline, but I didn't see him throwing the F-bomb every other word, right? He's not paying into the pickle jar, putting dollars in the swear jar, right? So that's always
He got a little intense toward the end of the game, but that's because I think he wanted to make sure that we didn't get any silly penalties that would somehow change the course of the game.
And they seem to be pretty disciplined. I've watched a lot of teams this year where when they're up or they're losing big or winning big, the buttholes seem to there's a difference between a-holes and meatheads. Like every team has meatheads. Meatheads are good, but you don't want them to be total buttholes, And
Sure.
Those are the bonehead plays that you just don't want to have when you're playing at high school, college, NFL. It doesn't matter, and you see it, But let's talk a little bit more about Rich Rod. Do you think he's starting to feel a little bit of the pressure, a little bit of I don't think the seat was hot, but he was kind of doing the Rodney Dangerfield thing, right? And to see
Sure.
after the win, he is definitely exactly like where he stands and what he's feeling just by within 5 seconds. You're like, oh yeah, Rich Rod it really felt like there was some relief here. The guys really showed up, and the fact that they're proven week to week. Next week, I don't know, Eric, they're favorites finally. Finally, they're favorites at home against Colorado.
Yeah.
So what? So
before we look, let's not look too far ahead.
Right.
But is it okay if we go back and look back at?
No,
I don't want to say necessarily.
We're all over the place because I'm so god darn excited. No, we still have to look at the scores. Let's go through. You go ahead and hit your topic. I'm gonna pull up these scores here while you're doing that.
So not to pat ourselves in the back, and sprain our elbows, but we called some things. We did mention the fan base, and it's disappointing to me. We were talking before the show. I actually feel for the Houston Cougars as a team that they got to number 22 ranking, and the fans just really didn't turn out. That was disappointing and disheartening. We talked about the notion that if we could get, we were so close last week that if Hubbard breaks one or two tackles or is just a step faster getting through the line, it's a whole different run game. And kudos to all of our, running backs. Every one of them played their guts out. A special shout out to Hubbard. The guy had a cramp on the first play of the game, and I thought, well, he's done. We're going to have to close out with two running backs, and with the way we've been going through running backs, this could get tough. But they all played rough. They all played tough. They ran hard. They ran fast, and you saw the difference. Just that little bit of difference. And that includes Scotty Fox. My goodness, some of the gutsy runs he had, fantastic. We talked about the short and intermediate pass game. That if you could get a little bit of success there, that helps your run. It also helps your long passes. And we saw that with both ends. The run game picked up. Gallagher had some really nice catches. Cam joined in. It just, when you can get success in one area,
Mhm.
excuse me, it opens up the others. We talked about pressuring the quarterback in that we felt we could do that. And my goodness, that just really showed up. Shout out to Jamori. He showed up in a big way. Glad to see him, kind of picking things up and having more success. My goodness, the secondary had a great day. The pick six was insane.